Greetings, Rabbi Griscott here with your weekly video sermon for the double parsha of Chukat Balak. I'm recording this in Overland Park, Kansas, about 3 miles from the state of Missouri, from Kansas City, Missouri, and if you hop on I-70 East and drive to the other end of the state, you'll end up at the other big city in Missouri, St. Louis. Now, who is this so-called St. Louis, who the city bears his name, who we Jews would not refer to as a saint, but rather as Yamach Shemo v'Zichro, may his memory and his name be blotted out? King Louis IX of France. It's hard to keep track of all the Louis, but this guy was the 9th, 13th century France, who expelled the Jews from France and burned 24 wagon loads of the Talmud. Now, there was a beautiful viral moment online of an Orthodox man wearing a black hat standing at the statue of King Louis that's in St. Louis, King Louis riding on a horse, and he's holding a copy of the Talmud, and he says, "I don't want this statue taken down. I want it to stay up as a monument to the fact that he lost and we won, and I enjoy coming here with my son and learning this copy of the Talmud in order to demonstrate the fact that we have endured and that we won." A really beautiful sentiment and a contribution to this national debate about taking down statues. And of course, you can't necessarily extrapolate from one case to the other. The issue of Confederate statues may very well be different. I think the wounds of the Civil War are much more fresh than those of King Louis, who was so many hundreds of years ago. So I don't want to get into the nuances of that debate, except to say that I agree with this man on that particular point. I don't think the city of St. Louis should change his name. I also believe that actually let it stay up as a monument to our victory and his relative irrelevance. Now, when it comes to the issue of statues, there's a part of the Parsha that certainly resonates. This very mysterious passage of a copper snake wrapped around a pole. And this has become a symbol of the medical profession. But let's see how that plays out in the Parsha. Vayishalach Hashem ba'am es hanachashim hasrafim, vayinashu es ha'am vayamas am rav miYisrael. Typical theme in the book of Bamidbar, the Jews traveling in the desert. The people complain, we don't have enough food, we don't have enough water. God gets fed up with their complaints, he punishes them. God sent the fiery serpents against the people, and they bit the people. A large multitude of Israel died. So, very scary plague that God sends with these fiery snakes. And what's the cure for it? Hashem said to Moshe, "Make yourself a fiery serpent and place it on a pole, and it will be that anyone who is bitten will look at it and will live." That's the antidote. That's the magical antidote, to just look at this snake wrapped around a pole, and that will heal the bites of the real snake. So what exactly is that about? And a snake wrapped around the pole has become the symbol on ambulances around the world. It's the symbol of the medical profession. And it's not only from the Torah. Apparently this symbol is found in Greek mythology also, although the Greeks might have gotten it from the Torah, because I believe we had it first. But there's something universal about this symbol, which makes it all the more fascinating. And as I was sitting and writing this speech last night, an unbelievable moment happened that really blew my mind. I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I have a prop for this speech, and I saw this on my desk. Unbelievable. My mind was blown. I hadn't noticed it before, but this is a bookend that my father-in-law gave me of 2 snakes wrapped around a pole with wings on top. Sometimes you see this version. In the Torah, it's just 1 snake wrapped around the pole, no wings, but okay, this one's made in Israel. It's a bookend, but I use it as a paperweight. And you could just picture how my mind was blown as I was writing this speech, and I look up at the corner of my eye and my jaw drops. This is what I was writing about, and I hadn't noticed, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, so what is that about? I did some rudimentary Google research, Well, first, of course, I looked in Rashi before that, which is the right thing to do. And what does Rashi say? Rashi says that the symbolism of God sending the snake to bite them in the first place harkens back to the primeval snake, the Satan, who enticed Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge. And of course, so the snake represents Satan, and therefore that's what God sent that image to bite them, to remind them of their own sinfulness. Okay, but then why is the snake wrapped around a pole the antidote? So that's where I did the Google research about the Greek mythology version. And one of the things I found that I think resonates is the notion of a snake as a sign of healing, because the venom of a snake actually also has healing properties, right? Human beings discovered that if you use the venom in a certain way, with certain dosages, you can actually make yourself immune. It could actually heal you. So that's why it represents healing, which is sort of interesting. But I want to go deeper than that, and based on Kabbalah and based on mysticism of what the snake wrapped around the pole specifically represents. First of all, I think that notion of that the very thing that harms you is that which has the power to heal you has such powerful metaphorical resonance, even from a psychological perspective, right? The snake is this great scary snake, Satan, that challenges us. And how are you going to defeat him? Precisely by confronting him, not by running away from him. And that's the imagery, I believe, of the snake specifically wrapped around the pole. What is the English idiom of when you have complete control over someone? I have that guy wrapped around my finger, right? When it's wrapped around something, it's compliant and it's under control. Not only that, but a staff, the thing that it's wrapped around, represents authority. So the imagery of that snake wrapped around your staff of authority represents that you've taken all of the scary monsters in life that haunt you, so to speak, and you've put them under your control. And I think of the movie Crocodile Dundee, where he's able to tame animals by doing this weird thing with his finger, right? That's what we have to do with our Yetzer Hara, with the Satan, with the Satan within us and all of the things that haunt us, to confront it directly and wrap it around our staff of authority. And I think of the Tanya, the great book of the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who talks about what makes a tzaddik, what makes someone righteous. A regular righteous person, an average righteous person, if you will, is someone who's able to confront their Yetzer Hara, their evil inclination, is engaged in constant battle with it, as most of us are, but is able to overcome it within that battle. But he writes further, what is the rare personage of the tzaddik gamor, the complete tzaddik, someone who's completely righteous, is someone who no longer has to fight his Yetzer Hara. He doesn't have to fight his inner Satan anymore, because like Crocodile Dundee, this is my take, he has it completely tamed and completely under control. He's no longer fighting it, he controls it, and that's the completely righteous person. And I've made this analogy before to, let's say, dieting. You know, one level of dieting is you have a strong urge to eat that sugar and eat that cake, and you're able to fight it every time. But the higher level in that is when you get to a point where you no longer have the urge for that cake, and you don't even want the sugar. That's the higher level, is you become a transformed and a different person entirely. There are a lot of analogies to take this in when it comes to anxiety. You know, the way to get over anxiety is what psychologists call exposure. Expose yourself to that very thing you're anxious about. And so a therapist was once telling me about a patient of hers who was terrified of elevators, which is a problem because he lived in Manhattan on the 20th floor. And sometimes he would walk and huff and puff, which I guess is a good workout, but really isn't convenient for him, as opposed to taking the elevator. And he worked on the 10th floor of his building, and he would also walk there and he would sweat, and it was a problem. And she said the way to get over that is ride the elevator for 2 or 3 hours, and it'll be terrifying at first, but then you'll see, as you expose yourself to that very anxiety, that's how you'll confront it. And all of that, I think, is resonant of this snake wrapped around a pole, that the venom itself is that which can heal you. And it's really the same thing with a vaccine. What is a vaccine? But we human beings have figured out in our genius to take the very virus itself and introduce it into our system in a way that we can get immune. Hopefully we all pray for a vaccine for corona very soon, right? Where we can achieve immunity, but without making ourselves sick. Very similar to the snake venom, which is resonant in that medical symbol. So Rabbi Soloveitchik writes in his beautiful essay, Lonely Man of Faith, that this is what gives the human being dignity, our scientific discovery. God says in the beginning of the Torah, Miluas haaretz v'kivshuha. He tells Adam, go out into the world and conquer it. And when the human beings invent new technology, that's the ultimate manifestation of human dignity. And I think the same is true when it comes to our medical discoveries. The fact that we have the ability to confront that terrifying, scary snake that cavemen didn't know what to do about. But now we know. I know how to take your venom and use it against you and to heal us. I know how to take a vaccine and decode it. I know how to take a virus and make a vaccine out of it. The ultimate power and dignity that we human beings have. The human being is created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God. And Rashi says that means lahavinu lahaskil. And the image of God means the ability to understand and to comprehend. It's our intellect and our ability to confront sickness and understand it and defeat it and wrap it around our staff of authority, which gives us that human dignity. And the same is true with all the scary snakes and monsters, psychological and physical, that haunt us in life, that's how to overcome them. And so to conclude with a quote from the second parsha from Balak, Bilam, the wicked prophet who's hired to curse the Jewish people, in his final prophecy about the end of days, says something very mysterious about our ultimate enemy, about Amalek. He says, Vayaras Amalek vayisamish alo vayamar reishis goyim Amalek v'achariso ade ove. He saw Amalek and declaimed his parable and said, Amalek is the first among nations, but its end will be eternal destruction. The commentary is to ask, why is the evil nation, who's like they're our counterpoint, why are they the first among nations? That seems like a compliment. And Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin says that's the entire point. They're the most important nation for us precisely because they are Satan to our good guy. They are the villain to our hero. They're the ones who push us to become better. When we have Amalek, which really represents evil, to confront, they're the first among nations. Just like the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, the snake within us, is the one who challenges us to overcome it and to make ourselves better. So does Amalek and the existence of evil in the world, which the Jews exist to counter and to repair the world. Amalek is the first and most important among nations. Just like Batman, so to speak, couldn't be Batman without the Joker, and Superman couldn't be Superman without Lex Luthor, so we could not be Israel without Amalek, and so you could not be a good human being at Tzaddik without the Satan, without the snake within you, and the challenge that he presents in overcoming him. So my bracha, my blessing to us all is that we all succeed to take that snake that's haunting us, to wrap it around our staff of authority, and have it under our complete control, as well as eventually this virus that plagues us as well. Good Shabbos.